Hey guys, so I wanted to cover this topic for a while, um, but I wanted it to be, a good video. I don't have my thoughts together. I almost never do. I wanted to try to change that. I don't know if that's going to happen. But back around the turn of the century, I've mentioned before that I was pretty active in the Usenet groups for pool and billiards. One of the first ever topics that I ever, wrote about, opened a topic was about what I was calling push strokes, pull strokes, and coast strokes or neutral strokes. And I don't think I did a very good job explaining it back then either. I see no reason why I should explain it any better now, but I'm going to give it a try. So, when I'm talking about, when I say push stroke, is not something like this. Kitty, please get down. Dipshit. Hey. Get down. Sorry about that interruption. What I'm talking about on a coaster or a pull stroke is not, I don't even know what would a pull stroke be. Like, I don't know, you miscue and then you bring it, anyway, what I'm talking about is, so, I believe that probably just about every person, try this. Just, or do your left arm if you're left-handed. And I would imagine that just about everybody can feel a point where they stop pulling their elbow closed and they start pushing. For me, it's about 90 degrees. I can definitely feel that doing this when I'm back here, we're basically just talking about my bicep closing it. But once I get past that 90-degree mark, then other muscles come into play. Shoulder, things like that come into play. So I call a pull stroke where it's all about pulling the shot. I don't remember what's in frame here. New camera setup and all that garbage. So what I consider to be a pull stroke would be when the tip is right at the cue ball, you're pulling. It's a pull all the way up to the cue ball. There's no push. Remember, like this. Well, if you're still doing this, you can stop. The calisthenics portion of this video is over with. But so this is a pull stroke. For me, that usually means I'm gripping further back on the cue. Opposite of that would be a push. For me, that usually means I'm gripping more forward. And that means that I'm past that 90-degree point but before I even hit the cue ball. So when I hit the cue ball, it's all the pushing, the muscles, whatever involved in that. And then if you're using a neutral stroke or a coast stroke, at least as far as these categories go, then you're hitting the cue ball right at that point. Right at that point, that transition point. And I think that is what all the books say to do. That's what an awful lot of good players do. Is they're hitting that cue ball right at that point, at that transition between a pull and a push. But me, since I have to be weird, I can't do that. I can. Obviously, I'm physically capable of doing it, I guess. But this is the problem that I have, is that I have certain things that I'm better at with a pull stroke and certain things I'm better at with a push stroke. With a pull stroke, I'm much more accurate. But I don't have a lot of feel for speed. Mainly speed, but cue ball position, tricky cue ball position, whatever. I don't have a lot. It's just all about just getting on the stupid shot, and I'm back here a little bit further. I can see the cue on the shot line and all that, and I can pull into it, and I can hit it pretty accurately. But I don't have a whole lot of feel for what's the cue ball going to do. I give it educated guesses. On the other hand, if I have a push stroke, I don't know, let's pretend or something. Pretend I wanted to do something, but I want to roll forward 2 feet or 2.5 feet or 1.5 feet or whatever, or draw back something, break out a cluster, whatever. Use your imagination. I'm better at that with a push stroke, but I'm not as good at just making a stupid ball in the first place. I'm not as accurate. There's more muscles involved. I think it makes sense. There's more muscles involved in a push stroke, so there's more things that could go wrong. I think that a lot of people, a lot of the books, a lot of the really elite players, they hit it right at that neutral point. That's when they hit the cue ball. And they get the best of both worlds. I'm assuming that, well, yeah, that might be a pretty big assumption. But let's say a player, Jeremy Jones, let's say he's better with his pull stroke. He uses a pull stroke, and he's more accurate with that, but maybe he doesn't quite have the feel. And let's say he decided he wants to have a little bit better feel for the shots. So he starts hitting the cue ball at that neutral point. And he's got his accuracy, and now he's got the feel. This would be the case with me, except with me I don't get the best of both worlds. If I hit it at that neutral point, I get the worst of both worlds. I don't have the accuracy I want, and I still don't have the feel that I want. So I end up having to pick one almost all the time. One of the many reasons that I have not over the years had a consistent physical style. Because there are times when I just want to be accurate as hell and bank this 4, but there are times when I want to hit the 4 and draw back here for a bank on something else, whatever, follow forward, break out a cluster, whatever it is. And I have to use 2 different strokes to do that to give myself the best chance of succeeding. This is definitely annoying, and I know it's annoying. And I guarantee that I'm more annoyed by it than anybody else that might be, whatever, screaming at the screen going, Dave, you got to be consistent if you want to be a good player. Yeah, I've been telling myself this I've been playing pool for almost 40 years. I've been telling myself that for, I would say, at least 30 of those years. It's not going to go in. But the fact is, because I do feel like I have some pretty good self-awareness of my own weaknesses and strengths and all that, and because I do have a billion different physical styles and elements that I use, I kind of know what works for me and what doesn't in what areas of my game. And I can't forget that knowledge. So if I decide, Tony Fargo, he had a really strong pull stroke. If I decide I'm going to do a Tony Fargo stroke from now on, he was a very good banker. I don't know if he's still active anymore. Heck, I guess I don't know if he's alive anymore. I hope he is. Very good banker. But his stroke was pull. That was his whole thing, and unbelievably accurate. Alex does a pull stroke, but Alex has some wrist and stuff in there too that mere mortals like me can't do stuff like that. Scott Frost is a pretty pronounced push. Scott is extremely accurate with a push stroke. Scott has extremely good feel with a push stroke. So he probably doesn't ever have to do a pull. I don't know. Everybody is different, and I've said that 1,000 times. No, I wasn't playing that 2 rails. I was playing at 1. Darn it. So, I don't know if I'm going to, there's just nothing to summarize. This is all just me. Everything I freaking get up here and talk about is just me. But I do believe that everybody has different strengths and different things they can do to help those strengths or hurt those strengths. And I do think, just like I've said in a bunch of my videos, that it's important to know what those are. And then you can decide. I could decide like I said, I'm going to do a Tony Fargo stroke from now on. I'm going to do a pull stroke from now on. I could decide that. And I could probably muster up the discipline to do it, to carry through on it. But it might just mean that I'm a worse player than I am right now. That I just never had the feel that I'm accustomed to. It might mean that. But I can still make the decision to do it. I just have to decide if it's worth it to me to lose that feel for the sake of consistency. Or we could go the other way around. There's a cat. I don't know if you can see her. So that's what I wanted to talk about, was just know what you're doing. That's the best advice I can give just about anybody about pool, is know what you're doing. If some shots are pulls and some shots are pushes and you don't know, you could be missing or otherwise screwing up and not really understanding why. And maybe just going, well, I must be drunk tonight, or whatever excuse you want to come up with for your girl. But if you know that you are doing something physically different, then you can start paying attention to, did that help? Did that hurt? Didn't seem to make no difference whatsoever. This is what I've been doing for a million years, is trying different things and seeing, does it help? Does it hurt? Does it make no difference whatsoever? And my plan has always been that eventually all these different physical elements of mine that I use, eventually, like the cream will rise to the top, and I'll end up with something consistent, yet I'll be a good player. You know, I may die of old age before all this happens, but for now it's still fun for me to do it. It's obviously frustrating at times, but because I do have all these million different styles that I can use, I don't know if one thing isn't working, I can just switch something else, and it might work, or I can switch something else. There's always going to be something, so far at least, there's always been something that I could do that would like fix me for that particular session. And I just turn it around. Shoot bad, shoot bad, shoot bad. Okay, shorter bridge, Dave. And all of a sudden I'm shooting good. This is fine for like a gambling session or a practice session. It's not really good for like a tournament where it's a race to 3, because you might not have time to fix it. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble and the TV's going, so I'm going to stop. Later, guys.